Well, hello there, and welcome to, it's FrankieSense More today. How's it going? I have a wonderful guest with me today. Her name is Ann Papayoti, and she, with a co-author, fellow coach, Tracey MacDonald, wrote The Gift of Shift. Discover the key within to unlock your best life. Ann is the co-founder of Skyview Coaching. She's an international life, leadership, and relationship coach, speaker, writer, educator, and co-author of, as we said, The Gift of Shift, an intimate self-help book. She's an expert contributor for Your Tango Media. She has been featured in MSN, Google, Yahoo, Apple News, and more. Ann has endured some of life's most brutal blows, and despite them all, she found the gift hidden within each of these experiences. The gift of choice in how to respond to the challenge. Now that is coach behavior at its best. Ann also has her BA in journalism and communications. She's a certified professional coach, master energy leader practitioner, neurolinguistics NLP programming practitioner. And I mean, that's a whole mouthful right there. We are going to talk about this and more shortly. But first, I just wanted to mention that Ann has a gift for you today, an amazing gift. It's called a Soul CPR. And you can go to it at https /soul-cpr-free-gift. And I will put that in the chat room right now before I forget. And I just wanted to say, if you are someone who has suffered from a loss, you're stuck in your grief, if you feel like you've lost your identity in all of the roles that in relationships that you have, if you've been hurt or betrayed or rejected, this is something for you. And your book, The Gift of Shift, is about many things, and ultimately it's about life-changing power of choice and the ease and the peace and the freedom that you get when you are given the power to choose in any circumstance. And I don't think things get, much better than that.
I agree. Absolutely.
It was so interesting. Okay, it's in the chat room now, everybody. It's so interesting reading the book and seeing how many similarities or syncs we have in common. It's pretty scary, actually, but very, very interesting. And you are like a traditional true coach. And I really loved how you deep dive at the end of each chapter, and you got to ask questions, and the reader got to ask questions of themselves. You didn't. They're not answering to you. And I had a similar experience in my coaching book, where I wrote with another coach, and we did a similar thing at the end. And it just seemed like that's the only way you're going to change your behavior and recognize your behavior more than anything is to start to ask yourself the questions.
That's right. It's all about self-reflection, isn't it, Frankie? And yes, when I learned about you and I was reading about you and listening to you, I was like, I just can't wait to meet you. We do have so much in common. And I look forward to more times with you where we can just get to know one another. One thing I know is we both have a love for Canada. I lived in Montreal for 14 years.
That's right. Yeah.
We'll talk about that sometime.
Ça va bien?
Yeah. I won't say a limité, but anyway, we'll try that another time as well. But yes, I think the opportunity that Tracey and I chose for our reader was by sharing our personal stories. So The Gift of Shift is a collection of short, personal, sometimes quite intimate personal stories, was to give the readers an opportunity to relate to the story, because it's a common life theme. While their story would be different than ours, certainly, the theme would be relevant to everyone's lives. Everybody's been through betrayal and loss and grief and having to find courage and cling to hope in some situation.
Absolutely.
But to get them to relate to our story, but then to ask them the questions so they could dive deep into their own and either be reminded of a time where they had to tap into something deep within themselves to get through something and say, you know what, I did that. So how can I use that now in my life to get through whatever I'm facing or challenged with now? Or to say, you know what, yeah, I'm stuck in that. I'm stuck in something about that story in my life. So how can I use this reflection time to help me move through that and find, a more powerful perspective?
I like that, a more powerful perspective. And it's all about perspective. Choices, somebody said to me, I can't choose. This morning, actually, I had a mentorship. It was a young girl. She goes, I can't choose between two things. And that takes me to the next point, because you talked about values. And that's, as a coach, that's the first thing I go to is, what do you value? Most people don't think about what they value. I give them a list of like 300 words. So bring it down to your, top 20, top 10, top 5, and you'll always know what to choose when you're in alignment with your value. And that's exactly, what you have done. And I almost erroneously put a fake title in the show today. And I went, finding the silver lining. It's not about finding a silver lining, though. The gift isn't a silver lining. The gift is choice, choosing to feel better. Which choice is going to make you feel better about yourself and your life? And that's what you did every single time.
Every single time. And I think that's, again, what Tracey and I hope to do, was to illustrate through our stories how we went from that powerless, negative, catabolic kind of state that we were in, that we all go to by default when we're in some stressful circumstance in life that we're all going to have and we're going to keep having, because that's the flow of life. But how we were able to choose to unlock that power, that's our power, is choice. As human beings, we have choice. Was to find that option, to be open to the possibility that there is another perspective, another perception, if we choose to see it. And so through the illustration of our stories and how we found that, and while everybody's on a different journey, and it's all going to be different time, a time, you'll say, how long before? I'm not going to tell you how long. It's going to be your journey. But it's when we're ready. And that's something Tracey and I say, when you're ready for change, we'll choose it. And I know that you know this, Frankie. It's like when the pain of what you're in
is greater
than, the pain of the uncertainty of the unknown, or the risk taking, or the courage that you'll have to grab onto to move through. But when you're ready to choose change, the option's there.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so powerful. And another part of that choice is responsibility, because, I talked about that again this morning, you have to, when you're responsible for your actions, when you take responsibility for how you're feeling, then that's a superpower. Like, nobody can say anything against you. Nobody can take anything away from you. It's like, yep, I own that. It's mine. I'm choosing to do this now.
And isn't that like the first level of positivity? I find that taking responsibility and realizing that we can create our own outcomes. And when I say outcomes, I don't mean like one of my chapters is about the loss of my child. I don't mean that I could change that, but I could change how I experience that. I could change how I could create meaning and purpose and find that if I took responsibility for that, finding that,
I want to talk about that. I mean, that has to be I know it's my nightmare that, to lose a child, to think about losing a child. I can't even think about thinking about that. However, and I suffer that with you. And you talked about that experience and how compassionless the medical community were with you at that particular hospital. And part of me wondered, and not to say anything, part of me wondered if that was their defense mechanism, because they would have broken down had they been shown you that compassion that you so desperately needed and wanted and deserved to have in that moment. As perspective, we get to see both sides. And let's talk about the choice that you made that made you feel better, like that what happened? Because I think everybody's, mother is wanting to know, because everybody's got, why did God do this to me? Why my child was innocent? He shouldn't have to die. All of those things, they're just natural thoughts. Absolutely.
It's that you go from the helpless and hopeless and defeated and mindset. And what was it about me that I was not a good enough mom? My body wasn't strong enough to carry him to term, that he was born prematurely, that set him up for this circumstance to be at risk for his life. And then you go to anger, and then that's looking for someone to blame.
Yep.
And I went through all of that, and I got stuck in that sort of infinity cycle of victim and conflict thinking, and that destructive, energetic place that did no good for me, for him, for anyone. But yes, there was a terribly negative experience with much of the staff at the hospital he was transferred to. I'd had this beautiful experience at the hospital where he was born. Very nurturing, caring neurologists, neonatologists, nursing staff, and I felt loved and cared for and heard and seen, as did he, even though this baby that we all expect, the Gerber baby, and I had this baby had no body fat, and just not what I expected. He was born so early. But then when he was being transferred for surgery to the Children's Hospital, it was at a staff change time, and this particular nurse that was in charge of his care it was about her in that moment. And this is something I talk about in another chapter. Anything anyone says or does is about them.
Yes.
And she was, and I don't know her story. I don't know what she was dealing with at home. And I can see this now, but she was upset, but it was affecting my son. And it was affecting me because she was angry. She was poking him, and she was da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, stop. Can someone else with a loving hand and a graceful touch take over? I can't handle this. And from there, it was the surgeon who had to eventually tell me that my son was not going to make it, who was cold and matter of fact and quite short. But there was a gift in that, because what came to me was the opportunity. And this is what there was an opportunity, rather than me be stuck in anger and blame and frustration. An opportunity came to me from one of the loving and caring neonatologists who invited me to speak to a group of resident interns to share my story. At the time, there was no teaching for bedside manner. And I don't know if there is now, but at the time there was not.
Yeah.
And we know the power of story as authors, right? And it was an opportunity for me to share his story in the hopes that they would carry it forward and use that to remind them of just the soft skills needed for the parents. They may have to do that. And exactly what you said, was this a defense mechanism? I knew that this surgeon may have to go say that to 3 more families that day and get up and do it again tomorrow. And so that is exactly what I said in my speech that day, but to recognize that I didn't need him to hold my hand or give me more time. I just needed him to look me in the eye and use a compassionate tone in his voice. And that's what gave meaning and purpose to my son's life. For the 60, 70 surgeons to be and pediatricians to be that sat in that room, if they could remember my son's story, and if that would just remind them to take a breath and to add a few softeners to how they approached families, then my son's life had meaning and purpose. And I left ecstatic and feeling, okay, this is why he came. He came to teach. And it allowed me to get out of that place I was in, to see the doctor, the nurse that I was angry with. God, I'd battled God, but I said, God had cried with me. God saw his own son die, but for a purpose and a reason.
Right.
And it was a total new perspective and allowed me to move forward.
And you think, you're going to Children's Hospital.
Yes.
A place of miracles or whatever. And you don't expect him maybe to live, but like you said, you expect compassion. You expect somebody who loves children to look after your child. And wow. That had to be very, very, very tough. But yeah, I love how you turned that around. You turned it around and you gave him a story, and his story is living on with those people. And they're probably telling other people that story. And it's beautiful. It really is. Yeah.
How many lives those 60, 70 have touched since in their practices. And that's how I choose to look at it. That's the choice, right? I get to choose to look at it that way. We get to choose what we believe. So why not believe what empowers us
Mhm.
and gives us joy and happiness? And that's how I look at it. Just like I call it, that's the gift of Charlie Brown is the title of that. And it's like how Charlie Brown found that little dilapidated Christmas tree, but
Yeah.
he found the true meaning of Christmas, and it wasn't about the tree.
You know, we always say, do you want a Charlie Brown tree this year? Or do you
Exactly.
Yeah. But you know, it was funny because this morning I was talking to these young girls and I said, if you're going to keep coming with the same grief over and over and over, it's like coming to me with a stone in your shoe and not taking it out. Why wouldn't you take it out? Why do you want to hurt so bad?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, really, let's take out the stone and feel better. Because feeling better, nobody's feeling sorry for you not feeling good.
Yeah, I know. It's like
nobody cares.
It's my scratchy wool blanket and it gives me a rash, but it's mine. Even though I can tell you there's this beautiful cotton velour, velvet one over here that's soft and cuddly, but no, people are scared of change, I find, Frankie.
So afraid of change. And you know what, Ann? I'm afraid not to have change. My book is all about change. Because a prescription for change, because I think, oh, how could you not want change? Oh my gosh, how could you not want it? I crave it. But and that's the beauty of the book too, is that the both of you talked about your life, real life stories. These aren't made up stories. These aren't stories, fictional stories. Well, here's a case study. These are your real story. Tell us about the boyfriend story, your friend that stole your boyfriend. I mean, that is a classic. And in my book, No Bull Allowed, we wrote about song titles, of relationships and song titles, and how song titles had, beginnings and middles of ends of stories of like that. And so, my best friend's girl, you change the title, my best,
yeah. There you
guy,
go. My best friend Sky. Yeah. And I wasn't sure whether to even include this story. It seems so long ago, but actually one of the readers of my book bought his sister a copy. And one of the beautiful feedbacks from our book, and Tracey, I've had a lot of people reach out to us, was that his sister, who's now in her 50s, had some healing come from something that happened to her in high school.
Wow.
She'd never opened up to anyone. She'd never gone to therapy, counseling, coaching, anything to deal with what she'd been through, but this helped her. So I'm like, yay, I'm glad I put it in. But it was really the start for me, because I had a happy childhood. I'm not someone who experienced trauma in childhood. My traumas began in my adult world, in my young adult world. And then one thing, because I lost who I was in this incident, started that sort of chain of events. So it was important that I included it. So the betrayal was, my best friend in university ended up, I just started noticing these things start happening in our relationship. She wouldn't be there when I would go pick her up. We had plans and I was confused. I thought, well, I must have gotten it wrong, And then she would affirm that. We didn't have cell phones in the days. There was no texting. It was like, I got to pick up the rotary and check on. And it was just one thing after the other. And then I started things weren't making sense. And then she couldn't come back to school because of things. Her family didn't allow her to come back to school. She had struggled academically. And people were telling me, are you sure she's your friend? She seems a little jealous. My mom was telling me, I always defended. And looking back, I was a little naive, but ultimately at the end of the day, she talked me into, that anything I would say about my boyfriend, she would, you need to break up with him. You need to break up with him. But always affirming anything that I felt. And I did feel that he and I needed to break up, but it was always with the hopes of getting back together. She knew my heart. She knew that he was the guy I thought I was going to marry. But ultimately, there was just this taking everything I knew and using it against me.
Yes.
And she ended up with him. And it was very devastating because I lost the two people I was closest to. They were my two best friends, and I lost them to one another. So this
did it last?
Fusion of like, oh, they're still together, 5 kids.
Are they really?
Yeah.
I guess it
So,
was meant to
there's
be.
another perspective. It was meant to be. It was meant to be. It's just the way it happened.
It wasn't in your timeline. It wasn't in your
Wasn't on my
choice.
time. And the way it happened was devastating and cruel in a
Yes.
way.
Yeah.
But here's the thing for all of us who go through something like this is that I made it about me. Here's the lesson. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about me. Whatever anyone says or does is about them. So whatever drove her, and I truly believe there were insecurities and fears. And I know now that, there was a lot, and I tried to help her, but that's me. I'm the rescuer, right?
Yeah, me too.
I was a lifeguard. I was a flight attendant. I was trained CPR for everything, everything. I was taught to save people. When she, wasn't doing well in school, I was trying to do her papers for her. I tried to prepared for her for interviews. I pretended to be her on an interview to help her get a job. I was too much, right?
Yeah.
We cripple people when we do that. But that's what I was doing, and things weren't working out.
And she became you and took your boyfriend.
And so she became you there. Yeah, something like that. But anyway, so regardless, obviously, yes, it was meant to be. They are who they are together. Yes. But I made it about me, and I held on to that pain rather than being able to choose that percent. Well, I guess they were meant to be.
Too soon for
it
that.
It hurt how it happened. Yeah. It hurt. When we experience pain, we need to experience it.
Yes.
Hurt, feel it, validate that hurt, that sucked, all of those things, right? The no bull stuff, that hurt, it sucked. And grieve the loss of the two friends, the two people closest to me, grieve that loss. It was a devastating loss. And then remember who we are and keep living. Yeah. And I didn't do that. I kept living, but not true to me.
Living that experience over and over and over.
Over and over and over. And I started self-betraying. What they had done was done and was already done and gone.
Yeah.
What I was doing to myself was what continued. So I call it the overs and the unders, Frankie. Over drinking, overeating, underperforming at school, all the things that I had which had been, wasn't an overachiever necessarily, but I was
a high achiever.
High achiever, yes.
Yeah.
So I did everything less than. I lost who I was. So that's on me.
I think that I can look at it from the perspective of when you were in it, it was probably too soon to see they were meant for one another, because it could have been short-term, long-term. The benefit of hindsight is that you can see they've been long-term, and it was probably meant to be. Yeah. In it, going up against a value system would have been truth. Why couldn't they just come to me and tell me the truth?
Yes. Yeah.
Right? It would have hurt, might have hurt less, though. Maybe we could have still been friends, maybe.
Right. It's the way it happened.
It's that secrecy and the hiding and that's what makes it all, unpleasant, I think, more so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
We share something else, abusive husbands. Saying goodbye,
I'm
adios.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Well, a while ago. And and that's something, that was another reason that prompted me to write my book, was man, there's like so many guys out there. Why would you stay with one who abuses you? Yeah. And I don't have a problem. My dad, I had, in some ways, I'm a product of divorce, but my father was somebody who said, you want out, you pay the piper. And so he was generous to his ex-wives. And I felt the same way. I felt like, you know what, I'll pay for all this stuff. Just go, please go. And when my second husband, I was in a hospital. I'd been in the hospital for 6 months, and I was going through the divorce with him, and he kept saying, no. And I'm like, I'm busted up to the eyeballs, and I'm just still going, go. I'm better off without you. Didn't want to leave, but he had to go. And there's no point hanging on to that. Like, why? I don't deserve that. You didn't deserve that. Nobody deserves that. And
Yeah.
honestly, ladies, if you're listening, and men, you know what?
Yes.
There's a future after that for you. Way better than what you're living.
There is. I think fear keeps us stuck for many. Again, fear of change is a big one. So I'm glad you've written about change and choosing change. For me, it goes back to that first betrayal. It looked like I'd healed myself. I was living life. But a lot of us continue forward and hide behind masks of achievement. And these seemingly successes, but we're not really healed. So I hate that line in the movie, "You complete me," because it implies, that
I complete me.
Yes, but I had not completed me.
Right.
I want someone to compliment me. And that's what I have in my current marriage. But at the time there was still something missing because I had not fully healed. So what happened when I just started working for the airline. I'm flight attendant. I'm going to travel and see the world. And I run into a guy at the grocery store. I just moved to a new city. I'm in Atlanta. And he knew me and the boyfriend and the best friend from 3 years prior, university days. And he's like, "Hey, what's up? What are you doing here?" And I'm thinking, "What are you doing here?" It's like we're in a whole different state and everything. And it was just a comfort thing. I'm thinking, who can I set him up with? I'm not thinking I'm interested. Ends up, though, we do start spending some time together. But he says all the things I needed to complete me, to fill me up. He was stupid. She was that. You were this. She was that. He says all these things that inflated that.
How could he leave her for you? Oh my God.
Yeah, and that felt like what? It felt like love. Because I hadn't self-loved.
Yeah.
And so it felt like love, and it filled up this hole inside me. And so I take responsibility, going back to what you mentioned in the beginning, for that. I take responsibility for marrying the wrong person. I do not take responsibility for his actions and choices in the marriage that were abusive.
Right.
Okay. And that's how I see that.
That's very important to clarify.
Very important. And so I said I do to the wrong person.
And let's just clarify that one more time, because it's not your fault if he hits you. It's not your fault, if you didn't vacuum or pick up this little thing today. It's not your fault. Nobody ever has a right to beat you, ever. And with words or words.
Or lay hands on you. And mine was the majority emotionally abusive. But I remember when I went to my divorce attorney and he looked at me, he said, "What else?" And I went, "Well, he slammed into the wall. Well, he pulled my hair. Well, he held me and threatened to throw me down the stairs."
Me too. Yeah.
And then he's writing physical abuse. And I'm like, "No, but I guess, Anne, it's not always a black eye." And I remember thinking I was in such denial because I had so much shame and humiliation that how did I end up in this?
That's every smart woman's question, isn't it? How did I end up here? And I'm too smart to tell everybody, because how embarrassing is that?
That exactly right. It's too embarrassing. And yet, the people who were closest to me were seeing it. And my parents were saying, "You don't have to stay.
Yes.
You always have a home." But I'm like, it's okay. It's just, he's just, struggling. He's got a lot of stress right now. I was always defending, just like I defended the best friend, or I was defending the husband. But yes, I stayed way too long. I knew at 3 months I had made a mistake. And it started, very subtly with him turning around from first idolizing me. And it's classic narcissism. If anybody is in a relationship, look up narcissistic abuse syndrome. It's a real thing.
It is a real thing.
And why we stay. But it starts with an idealism, and then they start with the confusion, and then the gaslighting, and you start doubting yourself, and then you stay. But for me, there was that moment in time. There's always a crossroad and a moment in time where you're presented with an opportunity, just like the opportunity for me to speak, which changed my outlook about the loss of my son. There was an opportunity to change the situation, to make a choice. And while I'd never made it for myself, I made it for my second son that was born. Yeah. And I took it.
And isn't that I mean, that's classic too. You know, what we won't do for ourselves, we'll do for somebody else out of love.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And
I looked at my kids too, and I said, I gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hurting my children. We gotta go.
That's it. And I never looked back from that. I still struggled to break the cycle of narcissistic abuse syndrome. I still felt fear. I still felt control, it still took a few years to fully be out of that. But
yes.
I was out of the marriage. I knew I would not go back. And yeah.
How did he try to come back many times?
Oh yes, because again, that's classic narcissism.
Yeah.
Then
how could you leave me? Like,
yes, suddenly apologetic, suddenly, you know, there's gifts and this new courtship and all of this, but there was no way.
Good for you. Yay. And we'll clap for you too when you get out of your abusive marriage.
Yes, we will.
Call us up.
We're not responsible for anyone else's healing or happiness. And yet you can be, when you are someone who's a heart energy, and you can feel that you are, just like I felt I was responsible for my best friend at the time. And I tried to help her through everything and give her everything. I could not, you know, she was responsible for her own life, and the same for my ex-husband. And we speak now where we can sit together at things and for our son, but I was not responsible. And yet I was made to feel responsible, you know, for his health, his happiness, his ability to be successful in life. And it was all on me. And if I left him, you know, and that's what some will do when you finally take a stand to leave. So know that you're responsible for yourself and to others. And that means to communicate, this is not okay. And help yourself if that's the word.
Absolutely.
Whatever it is, whatever the message needs to be.
Yeah. You wrote, when I started embracing and learning about my emotions, instead of trying to bury them in the back closet and hoping they didn't come tumbling out or pushing down or away, things started to shift for me. Instead of judging my emotions as right or wrong, I got curious about them. And I think a lot of people, they don't even know what they're feeling. I mean, I've had people go, I don't know, I don't feel. Yeah, you feel. You might be numb right now, but you feel. But those are really, really wise words.
Yes, and Tracey actually wrote that chapter, but she's a great scholar of emotions, and I love to talk about them because, and the thing with that Tracey and I were just talking about it this week. We have a private Facebook group for readers of The Gift of Shift, and each month we do like a chapter discussion, and that was the discussion this week, was about emotions. And Tracey talks about, in life, she just thought emotions were automatic. She really didn't pay attention to them, and she certainly didn't talk about them. And that's just the way she grew up. And I was a little different. My family wasn't really emoting or anything, but because of my life experiences, I think had so much more trauma in them starting in my early life, I became very in touch with emotions. And because I've led support groups for 25 years and I've had to tell my stories for so long that I just, the power of emotions are such a part of my life. Even in writing the book, Tracey and I realized that Tracey's very scholarly about talking about it. And I was very, and then we had to coach one another. I had to get Tracey to share more.
Sorry.
Yeah.
This is International Women's Day. Break the bias. That's the
right. Yes. I'm actually speaking in virtually for Montreal about breaking the bias. So I didn't even realize I was doing that. But yes, so Tracey had to learn to open up more on the personal level. And I had to get her to check me to make sure that I was actually teaching enough without just my emotions. But yes, emotions are interesting, aren't they? And they can drive our life and dictate our life. And if we're not conscious about them, create chaos in our life.
Absolutely.
We can get them to work for us and not against us when we use awareness and then conscious choice.
Yeah. In coaching, we have what we call underlying automatic commitment. And so when you're feeling something and you don't know what you're feeling, but you do something, there's an action to that. For me, it's going to go buy a chocolate bar. I'm upset. Automatic, underlying automatic, go do it. Why am I doing that? I didn't ask myself why I was doing it. I just do it, right? I'm upset. I go buy it. Now, today, I can say, why am I doing that? And you will know why you're doing it. You were feeding an emotion. You don't want to feel that emotion. You want that emotion to go away. It doesn't feel good. I'm going to, mommy gave me a sucker. I'm going to give myself one.
Yeah. Avoiding emotions is huge, and that's something, in my coaching practice, often when I'm like, well, what is it that you're actually avoiding? If they can't figure out what it is, we'll look at the behaviors and work backwards.
Yes.
They can't tell me, from the front side and go that way, then we'll look at what they're doing. Well, what are you feeling? I don't know. Okay. And then what are you thinking? That I wanted chocolate bar? Probably not. Okay, well, what are you avoiding? Oh gosh, that discussion with my husband.
Yeah.
Or that, I've been putting it off, or whatever it is. All right, so you're avoiding conflict. So let's talk about your patterns in avoiding conflict. And having chocolate instead.
And having chocolate instead. I gotta mention something. I'm being blown away right now. I'm seeing our show on Facebook, and there's actually, they're typing everything we're saying. I've never seen that before. This is like brand new. Yeah, that's fantastic. Cool. Yeah, I love it. Carry on with that. I think that's so cool. Let me see here. And with your values that you came out with, I'm truth, education, spiritual, creative, excellent, integrity, authentic, and then you took those values and it's almost like you put them into an elevator speech, right?
Yeah. It's like really, a personal mission statement.
Yeah, like a personal mission statement. I love that. And I just feel so strongly that everybody should know their values. I mean, it's just, to me, it's like 101, if you know that, you're not going to get caught in all of these crazy experiences that you don't want.
Yeah.
Because if you feel your emotion, you get in touch with your emotion, then you will feel that moment that you butt heads with it and go, what's going on? And you don't have to go down the road of, 3 months in, this isn't working for me.
Just a decision.
We're intuitive. We know, we just don't want to say that we know, because we want a different outcome. We're hoping for that different outcome. We're afraid to wait, for the right thing. And so we'll just take what's offered us.
I know. I was working with my support group recently, and my current support group for separation divorce. And so we took on the mantra that if it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
I love that.
I'm going to use that for everything. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And I said, okay, but how do you come up with your hell yes? Is it, some of you are already there, you're going to instinctively know. So if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Now let's figure that out. So taking them back to their values, I said, so what is it that rubbed against you for a moment that kept it from being a hell yes? So let's figure that out. What was it that rubbed against you? And it's because some of them are starting to date, because some of them, it's been years. Others, it's about that. Others, it's about deciding to buy a car. Others, it's about, whether to respond to a legal query, or how to respond to a legal query, all these different things. I said, whatever decision or opportunity crosses your path, it has to be in alignment with your values. It makes it easy. It's just like you're saying, decisions, choices, opportunities, everything. The other thing I encourage people to do is just watch a movie. If you're not sure about it, watch a movie. see what ruffles your feathers for a character.
That's a good one.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So if they're being disrespected and you're angry for them, then respect's a high value for you. If, just pay attention to what gets you emotional or ruffles you or excites you or what have you, or makes you want to go in, just champion somebody. That's your value. So those types of things, and start narrowing it down. And I'm sure you do the same thing when you have so many to choose from, and I can't figure it out, then have them make a pillar. What does integrity mean? Well, I don't have integrity unless I'm being respectful, honest, truthful, blah, blah, blah. And that allows me to then really, really, really hone in what the definition of integrity is.
Yeah.
So when an opportunity comes in front of me to make a decision, or I do something maybe mindlessly, and then I check myself, something didn't feel good about it. I'm like, well, did I have integrity with that? I'm like, oh, you know what? I wasn't fully honest because I said yes to something and I really don't have the time. I need to go correct that. I need to call her back or him back and say, I just need to talk to you about that. I committed to so-and-so and I feel like I'm a little overcommitted, and I don't feel like integrity with that. Would you like to look at another date, or would you like to ask someone else to take this? Whatever it is,
Yeah.
we're never stuck, people. That's part of it. You're never stuck. Always come back and honor yourself and who you are.
That's brilliant.
It's good.
It feels good.
Yeah.
And you feel such relief.
It's freeing to be yourself.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely love it. Don't forget to come in the chat room, and I will put this up when I post the show, about the free soul CPR gift that Anne is offering you. It's a mini course or day, or that free yourself.
Yeah.
Free your soul. Give it a little.
Free yourself, revive it. That's why I think about, remember I told you I'd kind of say I was trained in CPR from the beginning.
That's right.
Swimming, lifeguarding, and then a flight attendant. I was always trained to revive people. So I'm like, okay, why not? So it really is.
Oh, that's what I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
The reviving that, we are both givers, and we can give and give and give. But we do need to receive. And a lot of times givers, it's very easy for us to give. It's harder for us to receive. However, the well runs dry. And unless you're getting a little bit back, it's like, vampires are always after us, I think, for all the wonderful things that are inside us, but we really do need to receive things back. And it came home over COVID over the past 2 years that, I was depleted. I was giving, people asking the same stuff over and over. And I went, where's mine? Where's mine? And it sounds selfish to say that, but it's not. Because you can only go so far, and then somebody got to fill you up.
Yeah. So there's a couple parts to that for me. One is when we're givers, and everybody that's listening or watching this at some point, when you're a giver, it's easy to then bottom out. And I'd say bottom out, we victim out, because when it's not reciprocated, validated, return to us, sometimes we can say, why bother, why try? Doesn't seem to matter anyway. We can get stuck in that, and just that whole overwhelm place, and that's when we are truly depending on other people to do it. So going back to that whole beginning of our conversation, we are responsible for filling ourselves back up.
That's
and
true.
When we do that, this is what I found. When I do that, I find that I attract more from others. So when I say I find it's like, the smartphone, the battery's getting low. We're not going to wait and let it die. We're going to plug that sucker in. We are not about to let that. We value that. So when we will turn around and value ourselves on that same capacity, okay, battery's running low, I'm going to stop. And when we know what those things are in advance, I know what I need. I know I need to sometimes just go sit and get my face in the sun for 10 minutes. Sometimes that's all I need, or I need to reschedule something, or I need to say, I'm not cooking tonight.
Yes, I said that this morning. I'm not cooking tonight.
I'm not cooking tonight, and I will, Uber Eats something in, or I need to just put my feet up and watch a good old fashioned movie, or I need to phone a friend and let's just talk about stuff that's not on the news. Whatever it is, I know what you need, know what does recharge you, so you can go to it and use it. And that's when I find I get these little messages from the universe that support that. Like there'll be a text from a client that just, says, thank you for today. And those little gratitudes and this and that, or I'll get I'll meet somebody like you.
Well, that funny that you say that. I have taken the last 7 months off from doing my show, and I've been doing the show for over 12 years. And my daughter was having a baby, and I knew I wanted to be there for her. It was her first and last, I'm sure. And it was a miracle baby, because she was told she'd probably never get pregnant, and she wasn't trying to get pregnant. She definitely wasn't trying to get pregnant, but it happened. And we're like, it's a miracle, so go with it. And I wanted to be there for her, and I was, and it was wonderful. And I had been feeling quite depleted, and I got the memo for you in your show to come on the show, and I read your bio and stuff, and I go, yeah, there's somebody who's authentic. I am going to talk to her, because I get so pitched by so many people, and I go, I'm so tired of talking to people who aren't real, of saying that I can do this and I can do that, and I know that they can't. And it's almost like I'll say to Missy, or the thousands of Missies that I know, like, okay, tell them to do it for me. Tell them to do it for me. And if they do it for me, they can come on, because I don't want to mislead people. I don't want to, maybe I'm getting jaded in my 12 years, but maybe it's just my own experience and intuition that says, no, that's not true. You're just, fooling people, and you're saying the same stuff that I've already written about 10 years ago. It's just regurgitated in a new and a different way. So no, but then I thought, oh, she's, International Coach Federation. Oh, she is accredited, just like me. You're a journalism major, just like me, right? Like all of the NLP, just like me. And there we go. Synergy is perfect. It's right. I know that you're authentic. I know that you're going to be giving out great information, and your book was fantastic. And you're giving a gift. So there you go, everybody.
Thank you, Frankie. Well, congratulations on the grandbaby.
Thank you.
And thank you so much. I'm glad that you took
number
some
10.
time off. Oh my goodness. I'm craving that. I'm ready, but my boys aren't. So I have all boys anyway. They're not ready.
You know what? Like 4 years ago, nothing. Then pop, 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 pop. Like popcorn, they're all pop up. It's so cute. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I kept saying, I'm never going to have a grandbaby. And then all of a sudden you're having grandbabies everywhere.
Looking forward to that stage of life. I really am.
It'll happen to you. It'll happen for you, I'm sure. My boys said they'll never be parents. I'm never having a child. No, I don't want kids. Now I said, maybe we'll have another one. Maybe we'll have another one. I think that they find, just especially because they had girls, and girls and their daddies are so special that, nothing beats that. Like they thought they wanted boys, but no, nothing's in your heart like a little girl.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's really, really good. So life is good. Life is good.
And so what did the 7 months do for you? What did the 7 months?
I was waiting to feel passion. I wanted to feel passion. I wanted to go back. Mm-hmm. And part of it, I think, was COVID, and a lot of people. I was just talking to Dr. Monty this morning, because he's going to come back on in a couple of weeks, because he's a brain doctor, and we were talking about everybody has a low level depression through COVID, pretty much. A lot of people were experiencing the same thing I was, which was, I don't care, I don't really want to do anything. The more time I spend by myself, the more I want to be by myself. The less I do, the less I want to do. Like just all of that becomes habitual. Yeah. And I said to myself, okay, well, if you're not, and part of my age, like, is this age? Is this hormones? Like, what's happening here? So I'm going to be 65 in June. So I'm thinking, you know, what's happening? So I said, if I'm not feeling the passion, I'm going to create the passion, because I'm going to fake it. Like I said in my book, fake it till you make it. And because once you start to do that, things are starting to happen. So I started to go back and do, even this week, all the stuff I hadn't been doing. I'm an artist. So I started painting last night. You know, I started my show up again. I've gotten a job, you know, mentoring these young women, young leaders, future leaders in India. Like, all of this stuff is happening all at once, and it's great. And it's motivating me. And where I was feeling or meh, now I'm feeling charged and creative again, and it feels really good. So just taking that step to say yes when you feel like no was a big step. Yeah. And I mean, I know that I love talking to people. I know I love doing the show. You know, that I wasn't feeling it. Part of it was I was depleted, but part of it really was, you know, just feeling the stress and the angst and the worry about, you know, what was happening in the world, and watching too much news, which, you know, I wasn't supposed to do. And all of that stuff. Right. So, yeah.
And being, in fact, taking on that energy too. And I think that's what I'm talking to a lot of people. It's in the news, of course, taking it all in, but it's been so much, and it's for so long.
It's been so much for so long. And then, like, we're going to talk about this in a few weeks with Dr. Monty, but how even in your own family, your people are starting to separate into tribes, and those tribes are not thinking what you're thinking. And you love these people, but they're thinking the wrong thing, you know, from each perspective. Right. Yes, and so how do you continue to love but stand at absolutely opposite ends of the spectrum? And so that's a really important conversation, I think, that we're going to have.
It sounds like it will be amazing. Yes.
I mean, but it's hard for people, especially because it's not just like he said, you know, there were people who used to be middle of the road. Those people aren't, there's no middle of the road anymore. You have to take a side, you have to take a stand. And so that's very difficult, I think, in today's climate to do. You think one thing or you think the other. There's kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah. And you can't, at this point also, I'm finding you can't talk people into positivity. You just can't. However, the whole premise of positive psychology is not to deny that the bad exists, right? And it's saying, okay, I've got it. I acknowledge it. I'm going to acknowledge this is what it is, and this is how I feel about it.
Right.
However, there's a positive too, and
I'm choosing to.
And I'm going to choose, going back to our discussion on choice, I'm going to choose to at least focus on the positive. And it's like, you know, every rose has a thorn, right? So I can choose, am I going to focus on the thorny stem, or am I going to focus on the beautiful blossom at the top? And I get to, both can be within my gaze. Where am I going to focus my line of sight? And that's how we can keep our brain, you know, trying to really, you know, link those neurons to that. And
exactly. You know, my husband always accused me of living in a world of fairy tales and unicorns and magic pixie dust. And I go, yeah, but that's what I want to live in. And he goes, yeah, but that's not the real world. I go, but it's my real world. I expect that when I go out into the world. I expect people to be nice. I expect them to, you know, be kind. I expect them to be generous. I expect all of those things. And he goes, yeah, but they're not. I go, but they are with me. Why? Because I expect that.
Yeah.
That's my choice.
Yeah.
You're going to be nice to me. So, I mean, that's the world I want to live in. So, and that's the world I do live in. And that's my choice. So there we go.
Well, there you go. It's the world we create, right?
It is. I've been here with Ann Papayoti. Her book is The Gift of Shift. Discover the key within to unlock your best life. And you are definitely living your best life, Ann. And I thank you so much for coming on the show today. And everybody, do not forget, and I will post it, I promise, to go and get your free soul CPR, because you're going to need it. We all need it right now. A little bit of extra oomph. I'm going to stop Facebook. Goodbye. We'll see you next week. And I'm going to stop our recording right now.